Can you do that, Martin?
Yeah, Scott, and the address is also pinned to the top of the Facebook post.
Okay. Oh, great. So the address for putting in public comment is pinned. It's been available since yesterday, but we didn't get any comments as of yesterday. We're asking, and I think this won't be a problem, that partners try to keep it to 2 to 3 people speaking. We're going to have everybody keep their mic off until they're speaking. That'll be a little bit awkward, but it seems to work pretty well, particularly if you're one of those people that you get feedback when you have your mic on. We have both the 9 partner agencies. We'll check here in a second when people say hello to make sure we have them all. And the tribal treaty hunting tribes. If we have time constraints, we will prioritize the partners for speaking parts, answering questions, and if not, we'll try to get through with all the groups that are here. I'm going to suggest something that hopefully won't get any groans, which is we go straight through, that there'd be no official break at all. All the groups have multiple people here, I think. So if you need a coffee to get a stretch or something, I think that we can be covered and we just march right through. That includes me. Steph, you can take over real quick if I have to step out for some reason. I don't expect to, but who knows? We're going to try to quit at noon, and this is for PJ. To PJ's great delight, there will be no history of the IBMP today, so I'm not going to do any slides. I think I have 5 slides maybe. Chris Jeremiah actually is the only one who has slides today. And of course, the big thing to be discussed today are both winter ops previous and, oh, there we go. There's the agenda. Thanks very much, Martin. However, we always have started with a quote for the day. So I thought this was a great quote for where we're at. It was on Twitter. This guy from San Francisco says, so here's our quote for the day. I was just on a Zoom call that ended automatically after 40 minutes because the organizer did not realize he was on a free tier. This is the single greatest advance to meeting productivity that I have ever seen. I would pay for this feature. So that's a segue to bring Martin Charlo in to give a few ground rules. Martin's, I believe it's the treasurer, Martin, on the CSKT Council, but he also does a duty for them of running meetings on Zoom, including this link over to Facebook Live. And so Martin, do you want to just give a couple of anything that you would like to say before we get going here?
Yeah, Scott, thanks. It's kind of awkward. I'm talking to the speaker there, and we have 5, 6 devices going right now. So this is our makeshift chambers. Welcome all. Appreciate you being here. I hope that you guys can hear me with the mask on. So as far as Zoom goes, as the kind of facilitator of this, I'll be doing the behind the scenes. Scott will be doing the talking. If you want to speak, there is a raise your hand option over in the on your reactions, or it's in the participant pane. Just click that, or just turn your video on and get my attention. If you are watching it on 2 devices, if you're watching the Facebook live stream, please shut the volume off on that, or you'll have the incredible feedback. Here, I'll give you an example. It'll be like this, and then you can just echo and talk, and it's great. So that's an example of being not doing it right. So, but everything else, I'll kind of take care of behind the scenes. If you want to make a comment, it is pinned to the top. I'll be putting that in the chat as well. If you want to, you can get on the it's called CSKT Tribal Council. It's a Facebook page, and I've shared it to several different groups. If you want to share it, you can put that in. You can actually send it to me, put it in the chat, and I'll share it to that page. So with that, I'll end my statement unless anyone has any questions.
Great, thanks, Martin. So as Martin said, the chat is available if you want to use it. Martin, probably Stephanie, John, myself will keep an eye on it. I suspect we won't use it a lot, but potentially that's available to you as well. Let's see. So the first thing we usually do, and I don't know if this will be Bing or Tom, is give the lead partner, which currently is the CSKT. So I don't forget it, our sadness that ITBC was not able to lead in April. That may happen next April is the current thought. Would Tom or Bing like to just provide a hello and a welcome as the hosts?
Sure, I will, Scott. This is Bing. First of all, I want to welcome everybody, all the partners, to this telecon today, and hopefully that everything goes well. You know, and the CSKT Tribal Council welcomes everybody that joins this telecon, and hopefully that we're going to have a good meeting this morning, and everything goes well. But we're still under shelter in place here at home here, and still using the masks and washing hands and social distancing yet. You know, here we're still doing all that with all the virus yet still around. But again, I wish, you know, I'm glad that everybody joined up here, almost 30 of us here. So that's a good turnout for a meeting. That's probably as many as almost the meeting we have. You know, we have our meeting. But I'm trying to fill the shoes of a little man that was here, Leonard Gray, you know, and he's been here for about 8 years. And the first 4 years I was on council, I was an alternate to the IBMP, but now that he's gone, I kind of trying to fill his shoes, but for a little man, he had some big shoes. So I'll see, I'll do my best, people, and hopefully, like I say, everything will go fine today and we'll get things done. But again, I welcome everybody to the telecon, and hopefully everything goes well. And if Tom, you have anything to say, go ahead and do it.
Thank you, Bing. Thanks for those words, and I echo your feelings about Leonard and the 8 years he was on council and assisting us with this IBMP stuff. So I am disappointed that we're not hosting you in person in Polson, especially since it's in the 90s today. So it would have been a nice time for people to spend a little other time looking at Western Montana while they were attending a meeting. But hopefully we'll get back to norm sometime in the future. I don't expect we'll get much different for even the next meeting as far as doing a Zoom or something different. But I hope it's a productive meeting today. And I want to thank Martin in particular for stepping up and helping us attempt to do this, and hopefully it's successful, the Zoom meeting today. So thanks, Martin, and thanks for the Steph and John and Dan and Scott for trying to pull it off. So good luck, and hope everybody's safe.
Super. Thanks to both of you. I believe Bing just mentioned 28 or something, and now as I look down, it's up to 40. So we have 40 people online, plus whoever is on the Facebook Live in the public. Oh, the other thing is, let's see, I don't know, I think maybe Martin just stepped out. One thing he did not mention that we wanted to make sure everybody was aware of is, because Zoom offers the feature and it's good for documentation, he's got this meeting set on record as well. So just so you know, this is being recorded. Correct, Martin? Sorry, you're back. Is that correct? Can you let folks know how that works?
It is. I apologize for that. I skipped that part. So it's being recorded, and I'll be sharing that with Scott. And obviously, it's streaming live on Facebook, so anyone that can do a screen share or anything, they can do that. So be aware of that. We also have a few more of our tribal council joining. I just saw Ellie Bundy, who's our missing representative, and then Anita Matt, who's our Dixon representative. They're both on as well. So thank you, everyone.
Super, and welcome to everyone who's on. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go over a couple of things that are part of every IBMP meeting. The first one is just to accept the meeting notes from, unbelievably, way back last December, so almost, or even November 29th, I can't remember what the date was, almost 8 months ago. And I guess I'll just open the floor for 10 seconds. And is there anyone who has any consternation, desire for changes for the meeting notes? If not, they'll be changed from what they are right now, draft, to what they will say final and then be on the website as final. Okay, hearing no one scream, I'll change those to final. Thank you very much. 2 or 3 notes before we give the partners a chance to just say hello. Just the 5 partners. We're not going to go through the 9 partners. We're not going to go through and tribal treaty hunting tribes. We're sorry that we missed the April meeting. Obviously, everyone knows why, and the chance to have ITBC's leadership. I'll just let you know that Irvin, Arnell, and company had a pretty incredible meeting set up with bison food and all kinds of good things. We'll give them a chance when they say hello if they want to talk about that at all. There is some discussion with the Park Service trading out the meeting next April and allowing ITBC to lead that one. So that's a work in progress that Cam and Irvin talked about via email as a likelihood, or a possibility, I guess I should say. So our big events, if you were to look back at the partner protocols, which I did, are meaning the IBMP partners, are that happen in April, and the summer meeting every year are, 1, a review of the winter ops from the previous year, which Chris Jeremiah will be providing here in a little bit. And then to begin developing plans for the next year's winter operations. That includes any introductions of adaptive management concepts, none of which have been sent to me or to the lead partner as far as I know. Definitely I know to me. Another thing that generally happens is the hunt managers meeting. Someone can talk about that. I believe maybe that didn't happen. And then the final thing that happens during these time periods always are the beginning of the annual report. So we'll hit on those things. Winter ops, a little bit on the annual report, very little, just a timeline. And then reports on things that are coming up, status updates. So with that, we'll give each partner and the treaty hunting tribes, if we have the time, a few minutes to just say hello. So the partner or the partner representative, and what we're going to suggest is it may be valuable to others just to hear, as Bing started to do, or did already for CSKT, just how the pandemic is impacting you. I'm going to do this just by alphabetical order. So APHIS, I don't know if that's going to be Sarah or Ryan. You're up. So 5 minutes max, let's try, per person.
Thanks, Scott. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go.
Welcome, everybody. It's good to see everybody again, if only remotely. Again, thanks to CSKT for organizing this virtual meeting. COVID-19 has hit our agency fairly hard, as probably many of the agencies out there have been hit, and presented certain challenges to fulfilling our mission. Overall, a significant portion of our employees were already field employees, and they were already working from their home. So the challenge after that was to have the employees that were working in offices and at the hubs to switch them over to teleworking from home. And that is pretty much the norm now. They worked hard to enable all those people to make the transition to teleworking at home and to get them the proper equipment and tools so that they can be successful and continue to carry out the mission of protecting American agriculture. And so that's how it's hit the agency as a whole. We have a travel prohibition in effect until the end of August. And so most face-to-face meetings have been either delayed or put off until a more appropriate time for them to happen. Nonetheless, there's a lot of essential activities the agency has continued to do, such as at the ports and the borders to enable agricultural commerce to proceed normally. We also continue to investigate foreign animal diseases that might be making their way into the United States, you know, pest and disease outbreaks, and a lot of inspections that are essential to keep agriculture moving forward in a normal fashion as it can. On the local level, bison quarantine has pretty much proceeded as normally because animal welfare and animal care issues are involved. Operations there really are, as you might guess, deemed essential, and so not a lot has changed there. We're just finishing up the calving season. We finished the calving season. We'll go into the breeding season, and I'm happy to report during that period, 11 bulls graduated from quarantine, and they were transported up to the Fort Peck Assurance Facility on June 24th. So movements have continued as long as they can be done safely, both for the people involved and the animals. So with that, I'll turn it over to another agency to send greetings, and thanks, Scott.
You bet. Bing, anything else from CSKT? You did get a chance to say hello, but you're welcome if you would like to.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. All right, thanks, Irvin. Or I guess I don't know if I've seen Irvin on. I've seen Dan is on. Anyone else from ITBC?
Good morning, it's Arnell.
Oh, hi, Arnell.
How are you?
Go ahead. Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning from Intertribal Buffalo Council. It's been kind of a rough few months for everybody, I think. Unfortunately, Irvin was busy with something this morning, so he could not get online. So you get Dan and I think Megan may be joining us a little later here too this morning. So with Intertribal Buffalo Council, as everybody else, we have slowed down a lot. Most of our tribes are busy taking care of their own communities. I mean, they may still be in shelter in place and be on lockdowns. So we have basically been just tending the home fires here in Rapid City at our main office and just trying to keep working and moving forward as we get through all of these many changes that are happening right now in the world. But we do have exciting news, and we are actually getting ready to transport the first round of Yellowstone buffalo out of Fort Peck in the next couple of weeks. So that is pretty exciting, and we're ready to celebrate that for sure. I don't know if there's anything else. Dan, did you want to talk a little bit about the Indian Buffalo Management Act at all?
Hey, Dan, we do have that as a item later on in the agenda, I believe.
Okay, welcome all, and we will just sit back and listen to everybody else. Thank you.
Dr. Zalewski. Thanks, Arnell.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, Marty Zalewski with the Montana Department of Livestock. Welcome to everybody. Hope everybody is you know, as Mike might allude to here, we are working in a little bit of a skeleton crew at the office and continuing essential activities in the field. Obviously, folks that are in the field, as far as our bison management crew, are continuing to work, and we keep receiving updates from those folks. Aside from that, I'm wishing everybody health and perseverance, and hope to see you in person before too long.
Great, thanks, Marty. Mike Honeycutt for MBOL.
Yes, good morning. This is Mike. Not much to add from what Marty said. We're just down the hall from each other, but not in the same room, as a lot of you are having to do as well. Obviously, continuing our essential functions, our law enforcement functions, just like every other agency that are on here, those are essential and carry on out in the field. Only thing I would add to what Marty stated is, a big time crunch for us the past few months has been the major sort of market supply chain disruptions, market volatility that we've dealt with in the livestock world. And so that's kept us very busy on some emergency policy making, trying to help producers get through those challenges and make sure we still have groceries on our shelves when we go. So that's just been a major focus, at least for my office, and a major focus for me over the last few months. And hopefully some of that stuff is smoothed out, but continues to be a challenge. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks, Mike. Let's see. Next is Mark. And Mark, we haven't had a chance to talk, but just so you know, if you didn't see the note, Shana is the only person not from the IBMP staff who's actually on this call, Shana Dremel from Greater Yellowstone Coalition, because of an item you have later about bison carcasses. Go ahead, Mark.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. And it's actually great to see everybody, even under these conditions. I think it is important to periodically touch base and connect, and at least this is a small way to do it. So I appreciate that. Thanks, CSKT, for setting this up. We're at Fish, Life, and Parks. We are largely open for business with some exceptions. Much of our staff is still working remotely, although our offices are open to public access and customer service. They're staffed minimally due to a number of factors, including COVID interactions. So that's been a challenge. But our attendance at meetings are low. This is how we handle meetings now. It's through Zoom, and we are not traveling. But our field staff their work is normal. They're out doing what they do, whether it's enforcement actions or survey work by biologists and groups. So I don't believe you'll see, or the public will see, a large change in our output. One exception, though, as Scott, I think, mentioned earlier, was the lack of a spring hunt meeting, which was canceled. And I do not know of any plans at this time, at least, to do that meeting. So we'll have to see how that falls out. But our expectation is this fall and winter hunt will proceed as it has in the past. So that's what I've got. I see everyone, and speak more later.
Great, thanks, Mark, and thanks everybody for keeping comments at a reasonable length. Very much. Park Service. I saw Tim and I didn't see Cam. Tim, are you speaking today?
Yeah, can you hear me?
You betcha. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry we can't be there in person. Cam is out right now, so myself, PJ, or Nancy Finley, the new ICR chief, whom I'll introduce in a minute, will speak for him. So things are a little fluid here. In the room, I have Chris Jeremiah, who's off camera, PJ White, myself, Morgan Worthen, off camera, public affairs, and Nancy Finley, the new Yellowstone Center for Resources chief, who comes in behind Jennifer Carpenter. Nancy has an extensive and impressive resume of experience with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Park Service, including regional connection and oversight of the Great Plains and Northern Great Plains bison herds on National Park Service units. Nancy, she's a little off camera. I don't know if she wants to stick her head in and say hello.
Hi, folks.
That's Nancy, and as she gets up to speed on the history of the IBMP, she'll be in attendance at the meetings and part of the core team for Yellowstone Bison Management, conservation restoration efforts.
Hey, Tim, can I just pause you for a second? Nancy did not actually get into the screen.
Oh, all right. Do over.
Can she?
White screen out there.
Okay,
Sorry to interrupt you.
we have like a HDMI thing above our screen, so thankfully we can't see ourselves. So real quick, the COVID-19 stuff, we echo what everyone else has said to date. I think with Yellowstone, with our visitation levels, it's a little more interesting and nuanced. The park reopened on June 1st, and the onboarding of employees, both concession employees and MPS employees, was pretty intricate and involved a lot of COVID mitigations and convolutions. But the short of it is that we've tested over 1,000 employees since June 1st and have had no positive results. There have been 2 symptomatic concession employees, and then I believe 3 visitors who are symptomatic that walked into the park clinics. Those were, isolation and tracking procedures were followed, and there's been a real extensive tri-state coordination with Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho with the state and local public health authorities to get Yellowstone open on a limited basis. Some facilities are closed, and get the public back out into their public lands. I think roughly 1.4 million visitors have been in the park since June 1st, so that provides a context for the thankfully low level of detection thus far. But it's out there, and we have a mixed bag of remote employees, semi-remote employees, and then essential providers and leadership that have to be here on site. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Scott.
Whoops, great, thanks, Tim. Nez Perce Tribe, is Quincy here, or I saw Mike, and I believe Neil's here.
Good morning.
Is that Quincy?
¿Qué pasó, amigo? How you doing?
Hey, Quincy, good to hear your voice. Okay, go ahead, you're up.
Yeah, it's good to hear everybody's voices. Terribly sorry we're not able to all meet in person. It's always good to see everybody, and I know sometimes we all don't see on the same level, but you get to see one another, and it's appreciate life, and just to see each other's company. But we're doing fairly good over here. This COVID-19 is just like everybody else is. Has affected the way we conduct business. A lot of telephone conferencing, a lot of Zoom calls. We had our general council. We had our general council June 18, 19, and 20, our final election. And I was gracious enough to get elected to the Nez Perce Tribal Executive Committee. And by resolution, I am the representative for the Nez Perce Tribe. Also in attendance, we have Councilman Ferris Pisano III, Vice Chairman Eric Holt for the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and we have Neil Thagard as well in our meeting. One of the things I wanted to put out there on the table first thing this morning is just the food for thought. is that the IBMP partners think about letting the tribes host another year going into next year, and we had if we could let people think about that, let it sit for a little bit, and because it's to me it's really important that we get to host you all and share our story, explain to you where the meaning of this hunt, and let you see our country, and share some time on our homelands that we're born into. And I also wanted just to give a heart out, my prayers for the businesses that were affected by the fire in Gardner. I hope and pray that nobody got hurt and everybody's gonna be okay, and that those businesses flourish again. But that's about all I have for right now.
Great, thanks, Quincy. It looks like we will have time just to let the treaty hunt tribes know to give them a shot as well. Last in the partner realm is the Forest Service. Is it going to be Kathy or Scott? Not sure. I think Kathy.
I'll start out.
Great. Hi, Kathy.
Good morning, everybody. This is Kathy Miner. I'm the Deputy Forest Supervisor on the Custer-Gallatin National Forest, and I'm sitting in for Mary as she's out today. And also on the line, we have Mike Thome. He's the District Ranger at Gardner, and Scott Barnt, who is the Ecosystem Staff Officer here on the Custer-Gallatin. And getting to how COVID has impacted us thus far, we've had 2 positive cases on the forest, and both are recovered. Most of our districts are operating in what USDA is terming phase 2, and except for the districts and the offices in Gallatin County and Yellowstone County, which are mostly operating in phase 1. That said, we're still implementing maximum telework. There aren't very many people in our offices, and many of our offices are closed, and the public can make appointments or get their services via the phone. But we're still continuing. Our field employees are still going out in the field with proper mitigations, COVID mitigations, in terms of travel in vehicles, cleaning, etc. And the other impact that we see, a big impact, is the lack of face-to-face meetings with our partners, and we miss that, and I think everybody does. But we certainly appreciate the CSKT putting on this virtual meeting, and that's how we've been operating for quite a while with the Teams platform. But really appreciate you guys putting this on. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Kathy. With Kathy, we got a little bit of feedback. If anybody has their mic on, let's shut them off. Sometimes that happens. It may just be Kathy's mic. It wasn't too bad. With the treaty hunting tribes, let me just see. Do I have a list up here? Let's start with where are we at here? Let's start with the Umatilla. Anyone like to give an update there?
Yeah, this is Jeremy Wolf.
Oh, Jeremy's back on. Excuse me.
Yep.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Joe just texted me to ask if I could do this. I'm actually got 2 meetings going on right now. I'm double Zooming it today. But I will be actively listening in, and that's kind of the strange scenario that we're in. Seems like more often than not, meetings get scheduled on top of each other. But no, I really appreciate CSKT putting this forward and making this happen. I know everybody's going through a lot of uncertainty and struggles, and I think that a lot of what we're going through has been expressed by the other entities and who've spoken. So I won't belabor that. I know that we have a lot to try and accomplish this morning. I just wanted to say thanks again for all those who organized this together, and look forward to a good meeting.
Super, thanks, Jeremy. From the show band, is anyone here today? I didn't see anybody, I don't think. And Lander? Going once.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
It's good to see everybody.
Oh, great to see you. I didn't know you were on. Sorry.
Anyways, everything's good here. As far as the virus is concerned, our staff, Fish and Wildlife staff, is still out in the field doing their everything's pretty much normal here. And our hunting season is just gonna start here on the 1st of August here. And well, the buffalo season's still ongoing. So, but other than that, everything's good. We're working out of our office, as you can see, and things are good. Hope everybody's doing good, and we'll carry on.
Super, thank you. The Yakima.
Morning, everybody.
There's Brandon. Oh, good. Hey, Brandon.
Morning. For those that don't know me, my name is Brendan Keenan. I'm a staff attorney for the Yakima Nation Office of Legal Counsel. Also on the line today is Laurel James, who's program manager for our wildlife program, Tim Peterson, a biologist for our wildlife program, and Mr. Phil Rigdon, who is the superintendent of our Department of Natural Resources. I wish that we could all be together today, but I'm grateful to have the means to still meet from a safe distance. Really appreciate CSKT's efforts in making this happen. The COVID-19 health emergency has impacted our community fairly severely, but like everyone else, we have tried to remain resilient. Our essential government services and functions have continued. We don't anticipate any changes to our hunting season, but these days, we're all kind of taking things one day at a time. So that's really all that I have to offer in a way of update, but I would turn it over to Phil or Laurel or Tim if they have anything to add to that. Thank you.
Phil or Laurel? Or
Morning,
Tim?
everybody.
Please.
This is Laurel. I just wanted to chime in. Thank you, Brendan, for providing that update. I do want to say thank you, though, to CSKT staff and everybody else for managing the calls last season. That was really great to have the things so organized and knowing that they were going to be taking place every week. So thank you guys for that. I really appreciated it. And I think otherwise, Brendan covered everything else. So good morning, everyone.
Great, thanks, Laurel. Thank you all. We have the Blackfeet, and before I call that, just Martin, the next thing up is going to be Chris Jeremiah's slides, which start with the word Chris, so you could be looking at that. Is anybody here from the Blackfeet for an update? I know Irvin sounds like he's not here. Okay, going once, twice. All right, and I think I didn't miss anyone, did I? If I did, somebody shout right now. I'll give it just a second. Okay. Chris, are you ready for to provide? We're moving now into what's labeled on the agenda as the winter ops wrap up. And Chris, I believe there he is. So that means yes. Martin, do you have those slides? And these, we're only going to share slides in a couple instances in this meeting. And one of them is going to be with Chris. And Chris, I honestly didn't open your slideshow, but he told me there was only 6. So Chris, you're on.
Can you hear me okay? I'm kind of off screen, just to stay in the corner of the room. Is the volume okay? So typically,
sorry, Chris, I'll just let you know, we can hear you great. You're on the screen perfectly, and you are off the screen. Sorry, the slides are on the screen and you are off the screen somewhere. You can join us if you want to.
So, typically we do this in April, right when we're in the middle or just finished most of winter operations. So I'm going to try and just reconnect a little bit, back to a few months ago. Coming into winter, there was a lot laid out in the operations plan, but 4 of the, the overarching goals were to stabilize the bison population. We agreed that that would take removing somewhere between 600 and 900 bison. And we wanted to focus removals on animals from the northern herd. We're continuing to try to improve and manage hunting and trapping coordination in the northern part of the park. We had aimed to accept a large number of animals into the quarantine program. We were aiming for 110 animals. And we were continuing to try and foster exploration of animals into the out of park conservation zones in both areas of the park. Could you go to the next slide? Is that the best way to do this? Just say so.
Yeah, you can do that, right, Martin? Thanks. Yep. Just, it's Martin that you're working with, Chris.
Yeah, just let me know, next slide, just like that. Perfect.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So the general summary, this is was posted in the last biweekly report. We post those reports to Scott, every 2 weeks, or I believe this year was every week of the operating season. And to briefly summarize, we believe, or our best approximation is that 834 animals were removed. 548 were captured at the Stevens Creek facility. Of those 548 animals, 442 were consigned directly to slaughter. 1 animal died while in holding, and 105 animals entered the quarantine program. We estimate about 284 harvests, and that's based on the report, from the hunt meetings, the weekly hunt calls. It's based from the tables that Mark maintains, and it also includes observations from the field of numbers of harvests on near both boundaries. Of those 284 harvests, we think approximately 221 happened in the northern part of the park and 63 in the west. Next slide. This is a general sense of where we are. I will start off by saying we have not yet begun any population monitoring for this year. So we do a couple of things to monitor the bison population. When you look at this graph, the red bars represent how many bison were removed during each of the last few winters. So on the far left side, that red bar for 2015-16, slightly more than 500 animals were removed. Now moving across to the right side, 834 were removed in 2019-20. Now those blue circles and the dotted lines on the top are where we think the bison population is post-calving each summer. Last year, we thought there were about 4,900 bison in the park. That estimate was made based on multiple aerial counts, ground-based surveys, monitoring collared animals, their survival, their birth rate, from tracking the number of animals that were reported as removed through management, and a variety of other things. This year we can make that same prediction, but we haven't made all of those counts yet. We think the population right now is broadly around 4,600 animals. That interval, you can see that really wide range between the dotted lines. Right now we have a wide range. That shrinks down as we start collecting more information. However, we're still trying to negotiate how are we going to complete these counts, or if we can complete these counts and maintain for COVID risk management. And we're still trying to work that out. We're still trying to find pilots, and there's a moratorium on non-essential flights, DOI. We're still trying to decide if we'll be able to do that this year. But for now, we're operating thinking that we probably reduced the bison population. There's probably around 4,600 animals in the park. Next slide. So each year, one of our main goals is to try and balance hunting and capture. And this is always easier when it's freshest, when we've just completed winter operations. But I wanted to try and take all the members back through how the end of winter happened. This year, I would say, was a large migration. We had 200 to 900 bison north of Mammoth Hot Springs for about an 8-week period beginning in late February. That's about twice as long as has typically happened over the past few winters. Typically, that period of having that many animals down near the boundary is closer to 3 to 4 weeks, like last year. You know, the movements again happened in late February. They continued all the way through late April. The first, and I could show these slides way back to December, but it would really just show a lot of, you know, the bison hadn't begun their annual winter migration at that point. I can divide this period from late February through April into about, you know, these weekly intervals, which I tried to capture on this slide. You know, the first few days, you know, that first week, which was the last week of February, we were regularly seeing 300 to 500 bison right around the north boundary of the park, within a mile or two of the north boundary. During that time, approximately 85 harvests happened north of the park. And bison weren't distributing much or moving much more north past Beatty Gulch and returning to that area, that first mile or two, to the park line. Now, at that time, we were trying to capture bison, to trap bison in coordination with harvests. We didn't trap any bison during that period. The main reason why is that there was quite a bit of snow on the landscape and the animals were down close to the old Gardner Road. And towards the end of that first week, as we were moving into the very last day of February into early March, you know, the bison did what they do almost every year. They naturally shifted back towards the entrance station. And there were very few bison near the park boundary right at the first of the month. And when they came back that first week of March, you know, they were starting to use areas closer to the trap. So we were starting to trap animals. You know, approximately 200 or so, 50 animals were trapped in that first week of March. At the same time, you know, there were reduced harvests and reduced numbers of animals north of the park. There were about 30 animals during that period. Now, the next week of March, so the second week of March, really everything started shifting back, but this time they moved all the way towards Mammoth and even back onto the northern range. And we were starting to think that that was the end of the annual migration. But at that point, there were about 360 bison removed between trapping and harvest. And I should go back one step. You know, so that last week of February, and those first 2 weeks of March, we were trying to coincide trapping with hunting opportunities, meaning there were bison north of the trap, or bison were actively harvested, and we were then capturing animals. So now we're into the third week of March. We have about 360 animals removed, and there weren't a lot of bison down near the boundary area. And we were concerned about trying to meet the shared objective of removing 600 to 900 animals. We made the decision to more aggressively trap animals. So to trap animals if it were possible, if they were around the facility, rather than also coinciding that with a huntable opportunity for bison north of the trap. At the same time, we received a substantial late season snow event in Gardner, which dropped more than 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. And in response, bison just started moving north. And initially we captured large numbers coming north, about 250 to 300 additional animals. And we made a decision to stop at that point. That decision was based on trying to put us in that range of 600 to 900 animals removed. It was also largely based on how many animals we thought we could consign to tribes and to slaughter by the end of March. Both COVID was increasing nationally, and it's late pregnancy, and we've repeatedly stressed the importance of ceasing sending animals to slaughter by the end of the month of March. Now, during that time, there weren't many harvests. We ceased trapping on the 17th of the month, and large numbers of bison continued to be down in the basin. You know, sometimes 300, sometimes as many as 900 bison near the park boundary or immediately north of the park. It supported about an additional 90 harvests late in the season, and that's generally how the winter progressed. after hunting ended in early April, by the 1st of April, the largest numbers of bison moved out of the park. As many as 300 bison were north of the park, and as far north as Yankee Jim Canyon through the first 2 weeks of April. And then those numbers started to decline by the end of the month. We had animals in the Eagle Creek Conservation Area and also around the north boundary calving through early May. Oh, next slide, please. Now, every winter comes with some controversy, so I was trying to think of the lessons learned. Timely harvest reporting is essential. We need to be able to, and with that, timely reporting of the numbers of hunters, timely reporting of how many bison are in the basin, how they're moving, how they're responding to hunts. You know, the things that we discuss on the hunt calls. So thank you, Stephanie, for organizing those. That was incredibly valuable in trying to help us understand how to manage animals right around the park boundary. You know, we do need to make transitions in how we implement strategy. The operations plan is set up that way, based on where we are in winter and how many animals are near the boundary and how are we going to meet these multiple objectives of supporting hunts, stabilizing the population, bringing animals into quarantine. Meeting those multiple objectives, we have to make different decisions as the winter progresses. And we have to make those rapidly. And that's going to continue to create some conflicts. And we just need to encourage the open communication through the hunt calls to work those conflicts out. I would say overall, we met many common interests last winter. We met the removal objective. We limited numbers in the conservation area. But bison moved into the conservation area. More than 250 animals were harvested, largely by tribal members. More than 100 animals were brought into the quarantine program. I think it shows a lot of success. You know, and the last thing that last winter showed, as it has most winters, is we have a very narrow window that the bison are actually down towards the boundary at a time to make all of this happen. So having a plan in place, the communications in place, and for us all to realize that things are going to rapidly evolve during a short period, you know, it's just the reality of what we do. Is there another slide? Oh yeah, and the last thing is that one of our goals was to bring 110 animals into quarantine. We brought 105. That included 33 males. I can no longer read the slide, so you all have to figure it out for me. You know, 72 females, which was a mixture of yearlings and 2-year-old animals. We're just on the cusp of beginning serial screening for those animals later this month. We intend to separate those into 3 different test groups at minimum, and separate those between the Park Service and the APHIS leased facilities immediately north of the park. The general timeline is that the males could clear quarantine and be moved to the Fort Peck tribe by next fall, and the females will undergo calving. We'll talk more about that later. And at this point, there will be very limited capacity for accepting animals into a quarantine program this year. Most of the facilities are currently full. That's all I have.
So what about if we do this? We have 45 minutes in this session of reviewing the winter ops plan. Tom, I'm going to look at you for a second. What about if we go through all the partners, give them a chance to both give their own updates on winter operations, and if they, at that point they want to ask Chris a question, rather than trying to do just an open question. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds great.
Okay, well, let's just start. I apologize, that's not quite as interactive. It's just back and forth, but let's start with APHIS, question, summary of your year, and then also any questions for Chris, and we'll just march down the line. And clearly, if you need to pull a different partner in, we can do that, but just to try to make use of the 45 minutes available. Thanks.
Yes, not a lot to report for APHIS. We participated in one hazing event in May. Otherwise, as I talked about in the opening summary, quarantine operations have proceeded as normal. Just finished calving. We'll be putting bulls in for breeding, with anticipating a large female group with calves and bulls probably heading to Fort Peck, graduating and heading to Fort Peck December, January.
Great, Ryan. Any questions based on Chris's presentation? Anything you want to bring out?
No.
Okay. Nope. Next is CSKT. Tom, Steph.
I'll let Steph talk about our hunt numbers, and I can talk a little bit about the, unless she doesn't have it, I have that too. A little bit about the shipments, the administrative harvest. Go ahead, Steph.
Go ahead, Tom, because I was just sending Dan a message if he could look at the board. I don't have that in front of me.
I have it here. So
sorry. Thank you.
Our hunt, of course, is one of the earlier ones and one of the first to be completed. We had 8 bison that were harvested, 5 cows, or 2 bulls and 1 calf. Is that right? Something like that. Anyway, it's in the tables that we sent in. The administrative harvest proved a little challenging because of the COVID-19 at that end of the season. So we were essentially facing, shutdowns in travel operations. But so much of our Fish and Wildlife programs, just like Montana Fish, Life and Parks and the Park Service, we remain active and working. Fortunately, we had some really dedicated staff that were able to help pull that difficult logistics off on moving buffalo across the state and do slaughterhouse facilities, et cetera. So those 400 some animals were a challenge, but we rose to that and were able to do that. And the tribal membership and tribal programs certainly appreciated that opportunity. So other than that, that's all I have.
And Tom or Steph, any questions for Chris? I don't want to lose that he presented a lot of info, and if there's interest, people can ask, and if not, that's fine.
Well, just one thing for Chris, and I think this has to do with maybe the presentation later on, but when we talk about the quarantine program, Chris alluded to the, bumping up on the capacity of that program. So I guess for the winter ops for next year, we're looking at very specifically not too much for capture for quarantine, maybe none at all. I guess that point I just want a little bit more clarity on.
We can take that. Okay, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Sorry, it just took a second. We're trying to build a collaborative. We are building. We're not trying. We're building a collaborative program with APHIS to maximize quarantine pen space and moving animals between 2 pens in Yellowstone and the 3 to 4 pens in these properties outside. Coming into this winter, it will depend on how animals calve. It will depend on the success in animals breeding, and some other nuances that will play out over the next 3 to 4 months. We're expecting maybe having 1 available pasture, which means accepting somewhere on the order of 20 to 30 animals into quarantine this winter. But I hate to, it is a little premature to, I don't want everybody to write that down as the absolute maximum. Right now, that's the gray area that we're probably constrained to. Ryan or Becky, do you have Anything to add? And that's assuming we're moving some of these cohorts currently in the park to green pastures at APHIS. It's assumed on the larger group of MPS and APHIS cows going to Fort Peck in January or February, things like that.
Becky, Ryan, thoughts?
Back. Yes. Chris, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to, based on the conversations that we've been having, CSKT was just inquiring like what would be the size of the quarantine intake. I'd say there's probably a lot of things that still have to happen before we know that final number. But right now we're looking at bringing in maybe one ITG this upcoming winter because we'll be transferring the 105 we just brought into quarantine, among the APHIS and MPS facilities. So we're probably looking at an intake 20 to 30 animals right now, but it's way too early to bet and declare. Would you generally agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like a lot of things in quarantine, it depends on how quickly we can test these animals and reach them and have them reach a negative plane and make them eligible for quarantine and on the front end, and then move the animals out after they've fully qualified to graduate on the back end. So there's just inherent unknowns in the schedule, but I would agree with those numbers, Chris.
Super. How about Arnell, ITBC? Both thoughts on winter operations and any questions for Chris?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I have no questions for Chris. Dan, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that in December, we transferred 33 animals to Fort Peck. And then as Dr. Clark pointed out, we transferred 11 bulls in June. That brings the total of animals moved to Fort Peck to over 100. So we'd like to thank the partners who made this possible. As Arnell pointed out before, we're going to transfer about 40 bulls from that 55 group transferred last year out to 9 states. That's going to be the first time Yellowstone genetics have been outside the GYA states in over 150 years. So we want to point out this great milestone and thank all the partners who made this happen.
Wow. Okay. Thanks very much, Dan and Arnell. Let's see. Next is Dr. Zalewski, MDOL, and then that'll follow that with Mike from MBL. Marty?
Thanks, Mike. Or thanks, Scott. So just generally, maybe a less intensive operation season for the Department of Livestock. We conducted a small number of hazing operations on the west, and no hazing operations on the north. Although, like the chart showed, there were 2 lethal removals for bull bison that went out into Zone 3 and could not be hazed, and that was on the north side. We did certify the 11 bull bison as certified as brucellosis free, based on the testing conducted by USDA at Corwin Springs, and we were happy to see that transfer take place for those animals to enter assurance testing. That's to a large degree the sum up of operations from my end. Mike.
This is Mike. I have nothing to add to what Dr. Zalewski shared. Same comments as we're here together, and no questions for Chris.
Okay, and Marty, I'm assuming no questions since you didn't offer any.
Correct.
Okay. Mark, for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks.
Yeah. So I guess I'll hit a couple things. One, first of all, I think we had very good communication and connection through the enforcement of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and the hunt agencies during the hunt. There were some minor issues that were largely resolved in the field on the ground. So we thought that went well. And we hope that in upcoming years, we can continue to have that high level of communication between groups. I would like to mention one concern, and Chris mentioned it in his presentation, is the challenge that I had and Stephanie had, and Stephanie can attest to this because she was diligent in trying to get the hunt reports. The reports, many of the reports were not timely, and it was very difficult to get those totals. And I guess even at this point, I am unsure that our total is correct and accurate, but it's the best we could do. So I guess what I'm asking is, or encouraging, is all hunt agencies to really work on reporting, accurately reporting the makeup of their harvest and timely reporting it. It does help inform management decisions, as we've heard, and also how that trap is operated. And so there is real value in reporting those timely. So I guess I just put that out to everyone for future operations. Otherwise, we thought it went well. Our harvest by state hunters was very low. It was 4, and they were largely early season hunts. The animals did not come out of the park into the Gardner or West Yellowstone areas where we have our licenses until after our season was largely over in mid-February. So we reported no harvest for those license holders in those 2 areas. Otherwise, that's I guess all I have to update.
Steph, did you want to make a comment? Mark mentioned your input there.
No, the weekly hunt calls were well attended, so thank you everyone for calling in and representing your agencies. That is my only concern as well, was our limited reporting, and I definitely mirror Mark's concerns about not knowing from certain agencies what their final count was for harvest. But other than that, we had very good participation, and thank you again for joining the calls weekly.
Great, super, thank you. Next will be Quincy, but I'll just note that as we're going along here, of course, this is recorded anyway, but I'm already capturing a couple things for looking at next year. One is, will data be available that Chris mentioned? Will they be able to do the count? And now the other is this idea of we need to work on reporting. Please, Quincy, for MPT.
Just to unmute it, you click on it. To unmute it, you click on it, but you can.
Quincy, do we have you out there, or should we go to someone else and we'll come back? Okay, we'll come back to the Nez Perce, to Kathy for the Forest Service.
Yeah, since the day-to-day winter ops are handled by the district rangers, I'm gonna turn this section over to Mike Thone.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Honestly, 1920 recap, nothing too major from the Forest Service side. As you've heard, bison didn't come out till later, kind of change in dynamics of the capacity on the ground. Several of the tribes that they closed their seasons already, so it was a little lighter on the ground from that standpoint. As Mark Delaray mentioned, just a few minor things on food storage order as well, since most of the hunting happened after March 1st. But nothing real major, no real concerns came of it. So, and in chatting with Jason Bray over at West Yellowstone, similar there. There were no concerns from the Hebgen Basin side. So that's all from me.
Super, Mike, and just not wanting to lose that Chris presented a lot of data. Any thoughts for him? I'm assuming not, but just give you a chance. Okay.
Nope.
Great. So back to the Quincy, are you available? Okay, we got, I can see Mike Lopez is on as well. Anyone from the tribe interested in providing an update there? Okay, so we don't have anybody from the Nez Perce tribe for the moment. What I'll do is, why don't you, I'm going to continue on to the treaty hunting tribes. And if someone from the Nez Perce tribe wants to chime in at the end of that, just shout, we got it going now, okay? So Jeremy, for the Umatilla.
I'll go ahead and do the report for you there, Scott. That's great.
Hey, Carl.
Hey. Yeah, we had a pretty restricted hunt season this year between COVID, the migration, the late migration, and the trap operations. We only took 24 bison out. We had 9 different hunt teams. They made 10 trips. One of them made 2 trips because of the failure of their first. And a total of 29 hunters on the ground from the C2IR. And there was generally good coordination amongst the hunting tribes. We had a few mishaps, but as Chris said, the activity on that trap really was a deterrent to a number of our hunters, and they were very, very concerned about it. There was a lot of animals available, but not to our hunters. And that is, I understand the challenges there, but it's when you travel as far as we do to get over there and then to watch large numbers of animals pushed into the trap instead of allowed to come out of the park as we understood they were going to, that's problematic. That's all I have.
Okay, and again, separate that comment to anything else for Chris? Okay. Leander, Chauvin. Chauvin is still available or not? There he is.
The last that we had was of the 17th of March was 14. And I'm not sure if there was anyone. You still hear me? Okay. Yeah, but again, as of March 17th, there was 14 total harvest, and that's all that I have for you guys.
Okay, great, super. From the Yakima.
I don't have much to report. Our season had largely concluded by the time that COVID-19 had really started to take effect. Relative to the 2018 to 2019 hunt, we had a relatively successful season. I believe that 5 bison were taken by Yakima hunters, and generally speaking, I'm not aware of any issues that occurred on the ground. I hadn't heard anything from our game wardens. Turn it over to Laurel and to Phil if they have anything to add on top of that.
So this is Laurel. The numbers were correct. We had 5 for the season. That those numbers were reported to staff and folks during our March 4th meeting. That's pretty much about the time those bison were harvested. It was a success this year compared to last year. Last year, our hunters didn't get any bison. So in that reference, it was a pretty good hunt. And like Brendan said, we didn't have any other issues reported. I haven't got anything negative to say. So I think that wraps up our report.
Okay, and I'm going to assume no questions for Chris then. I'll just pause for a second. Okay,
I
I
don't have
see
questions.
Okay, I see Quincy. Quincy, I think, are you available? We need to unmute you right now. It looks like on Mike Lopez's line in there. There you go. Go ahead.
Can you hear me and see me now? Okay, we was on the phone and the host or whoever's hosting this call has muted us on that end. That's why we could hear you, but you couldn't hear us.
Our apologies. Technology. Sorry, Quincy. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nez Perce, we had a decent season. It could have been a lot better. You know, we had very I would say very little interference with the COVID-19. A lot of the I guess barriers to this hunt was the trapping in conjunction with our treaty hunt. There was a lot of frustration on the ground, a lot of miscommunication, and I think communication definitely needs to improve amongst the Park Service to their law enforcement, because they're the ones that are on the ground and communicating with our law enforcement. We took 121 buffalo this year, and more of the success was March 18th to the 22nd, and that was for our group hunt in response to the COVID-19 to get more of that subsistence back. And I'll turn it over to our Commissioner Eric as well. Let him.
Yeah, thank you very much. Tots Mayway, everybody, and I appreciate the SKT for hosting. And I, as well as Quincy, have some concerns from the winter ops side of things. You know, the Nez Perce did a lot of things amongst to create what we have for this hunt. And you know, we've wanted to always use harvest as our way of connecting back to our old ways. You know, those are the hunting grounds we're talking about are labeled and written in our treaty, and we base this hunt off our treaty language, and we want to continue that. But when we have you know, operations that take place during the hunt, you know, and I've said this before, where you know, we've conformed and did our things to improve the hunt, the safety aspects of the hunt. You know, we're going to have more individuals on the landscape. More tribes are coming involved with this hunt. And so, you know, safety is paramount. But at the same time, you know, we have these issues that are on the ground, you know, each and every year. And we've tried to do our thing to host, you know, have MOUs created to bring tribes together to try to create this safe hunt as we can. You know, we have these other things that are happening behind closed doors with other, you know, things that could possibly interfere with our treaty buffalo hunt. You know, stuff that's happening at Beatty Gulch, you know, for instance. Those things, you know, we've addressed them. We've tried to address them as best as possible. We need, as tribes, we need to come together to create a strong unified front to show and display and to convey that tribal message that, you know, this is a part of our treaty and we want to continue that hunt in that way to bring us back to that connection. And, you know, the winter ops, you know, when you have a hazing going on or trapping going on the same exact time that our hunt is going on, especially when we all know that, you know, it's winter driven, the conditions are driven by the wind, the weather itself, and success of the hunt, you know, is driven by that. And so when the trapping takes place the same exact time as our treaty harvest is taking place, the success of our hunt drops. You know, and as you said, you know, there are certain times that you guys trap these animals and they're coming out, you know, in mass numbers. I've seen data where it shows that your trapping numbers, you get a lot of them after the majority of the hunts are done, but yet you still choose to trapped during our hunting season, and that's what gets people angry and upset, because they drive so many miles to engage in this hunt and participate in this hunt and reconnect to this hunt in their own personal cultural way. And then when they get over there and they see the trapping taking place, it really hurts their hearts, because they go a long ways to commit to this hunt, and they see this operation taking place, and there's very little they can do because it's inside the park. They're limited on what can happen, and so they get a hold of their policy folks. You know, we try to explain to you the importance of what this means to individuals. So we want to minimize the amount of hazing and trapping that goes on during the course of our hunt. And I understand that you're trying to to get what you can for the numbers for ship and slaughter and that sort of thing, but we're not a part of that, you know, and we want to make sure that our treaty hunt is continuing in the way it should be. And trapping and hazing, you know, those are things that, you know, we call it stalking when we hunt. You know, there's a difference, you know, and we can't use that word over there because there's too many regulations that don't allow it. So, you know, but we've conformed and we've done our things on our part to ensure that we have a safe hunt. But we'd like more coordination when it comes to the winter ops and the operation of that trapping facility, because it has a real big hindrance on the success of the hunt, not only for the Nez Perce tribe, but the other entities as well and the other tribes that are hunting. And we want to make sure that, you know, our success of our hunt is happening, and the operation of that facility, you know, when they do trap, they can, you guys as well as I know that when they put that feed out there, those buffalo don't hardly go past that trapping facility. They stay right there, you know. So there's a lot of things that can curtail the hunt just on the way that trapping facility is operating. So thanks again for this SKT for putting this meeting together. Like you said, we're real thankful that we do have this opportunity, because our membership during this COVID-19 pandemic, as Mr. Ellenwood has stated, you know, we went over on our first ever tribal treaty buffalo hunt as a group, and we brought back 28 buffalo for the membership, and we gave that out to our membership for subsistence needs. And you know, and so to be a part of something like that was real powerful. And it you know, Chief Looking Glass, he did that long ago. And that's, you know, Yellowstone National Park has many sites and they're named after the Nez Perce because of our presence in the landscape of buffalo over there at Yellowstone, the greater Yellowstone National Area. So I just like to, you know, Old Looking Glass paved the way for us to be over there, and we want to continue that in his way. So Katsiaya, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Quincy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Quincy, you have more? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question and a follow-up for Chris. I'd like him to repeat the numbers that they trapped and shipped to slaughtered. And if we can get a copy of that presentation ASAP.
And while Chris is looking, Chris, I assume, as everything else, this will be posted on the website, plus I could send that out to partners, your presentation, correct?
Yes, am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. You're good.
Okay. I can try and step in. I can't tell when I'm in the screen. Can you see me now?
Now
Okay.
we can. You're right in the right-hand side.
Sure. So Quincy, you know, 548 animals were captured. 442 were consigned to slaughter. Sorry, were transferred to tribes, at which point they were consigned to slaughter. And one animal died within the pen, and 105 animals were moved into the quarantine facility. And, you know, I understand a lot of your concerns, Quincy. We all do. I mean, we're trying to meet a lot of common interests. One thing that I learned this winter is that, you know, there's periods when, you know, hunting and trapping are kind of pitted against each other, trying to meet the shared objectives that we all have to stabilize the bison population. And I know the Nez Perce tribe as much as the CSKT, as much as the ITBC, as much as the state of Montana and the park. We've all signed this operations plan to try and get there. I guess some recommendations that I have is we have to, when we get to these couple week pinch points, we try very hard to clearly communicate through the weekly hunt calls to you so that you can fairly tell your hunters what to expect when they're coming. Maybe avoiding intense hunting during a couple of these periods is something to think about. It's very important to all of us to balance harvests and captures because we know just captures is not a good idea. And we know just hunting hasn't worked in containing the population. So, again, always, just trying to move forward to find common ground. And I always welcome new suggestions, new ideas. And, one thing just to help, this is an aside, I just wrote this down. The 121 harvests that you reported, could you please just encourage Neil to send that information to Mark? Because right now we don't have that info, and it will be really valuable, particularly at the age and sex breakdown, when we do our population modeling to give, all of the partners, a reasonable recommendation, by our next meeting.
Yeah, follow up, Scott. Yeah, follow up, Scott. Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you. In all fairness too, for speaking for Nez Perce and also the other treaty hunting tribes, we haven't been fully given a 100% chance of using hunting as a harvest tool. There's always been interference with trapping, and it was blamed on a glitch or miscommunication. And there's always a number of different excuses. And I would like to see the numbers of the ship to slaughter of what tribes it goes to, because as a federal entity, you have the trust responsibility to the treaty hunting tribes. That's supposed to be the supreme law of the land. And when I've had talks with you, Chris Jeremiah, and you, Tim Reed, out into the field on a very delicate situation, and explaining where I come from as a hunter, as a leader, as a provider, and when things like that happen, it interferes with my way of life, that I have a right to live, as well as the other respective sovereigns that are on this hunt, that is secured by a treaty with the United States government. You're a government employee. And I want that to be known. And I'm going to say it and say it and say it until you comprehend it, and we start truly, truly working together and being a part of your guys' plans before, during, and after this completely year-round, of when you guys have any of these meetings regarding ship to slaughter or anything to do with that quarantine facility. Thank you.
Okay, super. And we didn't have anybody from the Blackfeet previously, so I'm assuming we don't now. Is that true? Okay. With regard to winter ops update, I'm going to look at my planning team, John, Steph, Tom. Anything else that you want to get out of for the 2019-2020, or should we go ahead and move forward? And Bing, obviously.
I had a question real quick. Well, first I want to make a good shout out to Stephanie, who did a great job with the calls. I kind of volunteered her at the last hunt managers meeting, and I volunteered to CSKT, and they sort of fell to her. So she got me back a couple of times. I had to manage a couple of those calls, and I had a new respect for how difficult that is. And she did a great job tracking all that. And I think she deserves a lot of credit. And I echo how important I think those calls are, because we had missed a year with that, and it makes a big difference. And so I would ask everybody to continue that and to please participate in those calls with as much data as you can. It makes a big difference. I just had a quick question for Chris, if he was available. It was a late migration on the north side. We've seen that as it seems like it's a trend. I don't know. I guess I'm curious how much is incidental to weather, season to season, or are we seeing an actual trend towards a later and later migration? That's an impact of the CSKT because the CSKT hunt is over after January 31st, and we've got the MOA going, and that's an important thing in Beatty. And also, you know, a lot of respect to Dan McClure and his wardens and everybody out there who worked on that. We think it's a success, but it could make a difference if it's going to be happening later, the migration. It's going to shift some of the dynamics, I think, at Beatty Gulch. So I was curious what you think is happening there biologically. Thanks.
Thank you. You know, I guess the first thing is that I just keep moving off the camera into the corner of the room. I have a 5-year-old and he's got the crud right now. So I'm trying to socially distance because we're all in one giant conference room. So I'm just in the corner trying to stay on the edge, but I can hear and see what everybody's saying. So
I'll say for everyone, we appreciate and understand.
So, you know, that's a very good question that you're asking. There's no doubt that a lot of our memory is driven by the large years, 2005 and 6, the 2008 winter, the 7-8 winter, the 2010-11 winter. And all of those winters, 2 of those involve substantial tribal harvest, or at least tribal harvest. And that was the time when those were the winters when we saw bison moving into the northern management zone in January. Most of the other winters, in terms of trapping, it's very rare that we've trapped before the 24th of February. In fact, it hasn't happened in those other winters. It's generally been very late February to March. You know, I do feel like migrations are becoming slightly later, but I think it's a very subtle change. I think one thing that you're seeing is that there's fewer animals coming out of the central herd moving north, which tended to be the animals that moved north the earliest. So most years, you know, with a sustainable bison population that averages close to 5,000 animals, seeing what we've seen the last 3-4 winters is probably what you're going to see. So the bulk of the migration occurring late February and March. And we've had, you know, 3 different versions with a very similar population size over the last, you know, few years. We've had a really cold winter, which keeps the snow soft. We've had last winter that was warm and had continuous snow and late snow. And we've had a winter with very little snow. And all of those, we saw a fairly predictable pattern of migrations being later. There's no doubt that these animals don't learn also. And, you know, we can't understate the importance of this. You know, we know that their migration routes and their timing is not only driven by weather, it's driven by their learned behaviors. And, you know, this year, you know, in particular, I was really astonished by the number of bison that would move towards past the trap and move across the Yellowstone River and immediately onto agricultural private land. Now, granted, that area also is more south-facing. It's going to be more attractive to animals. It's a bigger, flatter, wide open space. It has all the attributes that bison would like, but they also don't receive any hunting pressure there. So I think that, you know, the combination of, you know, bison learning the landscape better, having those behaviors passed on between generations, you know, continued hunting pressure and management, all of those things are pushing on this population. It is making things just a week later. Does that cover your question, John?
Yeah, I was wondering if it was incidental or if it was a trend, and it sounds like it's a trend, and it's probably something that's going to continue. Sounds like.
You know, and it's probably been a reality for a long time. And we do a good job of remembering those big winners when we harvested early, which really, you know, looking back at records, there wasn't all that much.
Okay, John, you good?
Yeah, that's what I was. Oh, thanks. I'll turn it back over to Tom or Steph or Dan or Bing for any other CSKT questions.
Okay, hearing none. Wait another second in case Bing is clicking on. Okay, so we're looking good with respect to the time on the schedule. We're about 5 minutes below what this planning group from CSKT put together. The next item is short status updates on new or ongoing programs or issues. And recall what I said earlier. I know we're getting out to an hour and a half now. What I think we should do is just continue through the meeting and go straight to the end. With people having multiple members from their agencies or groups, there can be somebody here continuously if you need to go out and get a drink or use the restroom or whatever someone might need to do. So moving through, Martin, maybe you could put up well, no, I think it's nice to see the person talking. ITBC is first with 2 items, a description of the Indian Buffalo Management Act and the status of Fort Peck warranty capacity, assurance capacity. Oh, I thought I changed that. Then Fish, Wildlife and Parks, release of the Montana Bison Conservation and Management Act, update on carcass removal efforts. Park Service, the description of a new bison EIS, and then finally Park Service and Forest Service updates on the lawsuits. We have just very short amount of time for each of these, probably 5 minutes on each. So we'll start with ITBC, and I may take that 1 minute break. I don't know if it's Arnell or Dan.
It'll be Dan.
Okay, so the Indian Buffalo Management Act. Representative Don Young of Alaska introduced the bill. The bill's already had a hearing and we're waiting for markup. The overall purpose of the bill is to fulfill the government-to-government relationship between tribes and the U.S. and the management of buffalo and buffalo habitat through the creation of a permanent buffalo program in the Department of the Interior. So the bill authorizes the creation of such a permanent program, and the purpose of the program is to restore buffalo to tribal trust lands, promote and develop capacity of Indian tribes and tribal organizations to manage buffalo and buffalo habitat, to protect, conserve, and enhance tribal buffalo herds, develop buffalo and buffalo habitat for maximum benefit to tribes, and promote inclusion of tribes in DOI decision-making regarding buffalo. It also authorizes the Secretary of the Interior to enter into contracts and cooperative agreements or grants to tribes to plan, conduct, or implement a buffalo restoration or management program, plan and execute commercial activities for buffalo or buffalo products, and carry out other activities related to buffalo restoration and management. And it also allows the Secretary to provide technical assistance to tribes and tribal organizations for carrying out activities of buffalo or buffalo habitat restoration and management, and implementing the activities of contracts, cooperative agreements, and grants. It also directs the Secretary to consult with eligible entities and DOI initiatives that affect buffalo habitat. And it directs the Secretary to coordinate with eligible entities relating to buffalo management in accordance with goals and objectives set forth by tribes and tribal laws and ordinances. And finally, it provides tribes continued access to surplus buffalo from federal lands. And this helps entities like the national parks and national refuges to keep their buffalo populations within carrying capacity and prevent the slaughter of federal buffalo. And I want to point out that ITBC works with many parks and refuges other than Yellowstone to provide surplus buffalo to its member tribes. So I hope I went fast enough for Scott there. And I'll hand it over to Robbie for his status report on 4-pet quarantine capacity.
And hello, Robbie. I didn't see you earlier.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
You betcha. Go ahead.
Okay. The 4-pet tribes quarantine facilities, we're planning on expanding where we're presently was at 2 quarantine pens. We're developing into 4. We presently have developed the first pen which consists of 120 acres. We broke it up into 2 pens, one a 50-acre pasture, and the other is a 70-acre pasture on there. And we're planning on taking the other pens, which is 160 acres, and turning them into 2 80-acre pens. Now, the first pen, which holds 70 acres, keeps our 54 bulls, which we'll be testing for the last time this coming Monday. And if everything goes well, they test negative, we'll be distributing them out to 16 different tribes from 9 different states. And then our other pen, which holds 160 acres, keeps our 33 cows and cow-calf pairs and 4 bulls. And they'll graduate here in January, and we're looking to distribute out the first family groups to tribes that's interested on there. And with them 33 cow-calf pairs this year, we had the 12 cows, we had 13 cows, we had 12 calves, which 1 died. So now we have 11 calves out of the 13 cows. And then the 3rd of July. And presently right now, we're putting up hay for the incoming buffalo. We're planning on putting up 450 ton this year. And let's see, that's pretty much it.
I think on each of these, we'll just give a pause if anybody has a question for it has to be quick, but if there's 1 question in each of these presenters, you're welcome to make it. We'll give a second.
Robbie, this is Steph Gillen from CSKT. I just had a question. You said 16 different tribes in 9 different states. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Super. Any questions for Dan? Dan went by on the Indian Buffalo Management Act. Okay, we'll move on to Mark Delaray, release of the Montana Bison Conservation Management Act and the carcass removal effort update. So 2 items from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Mark?
Okay, I'll try to be quick. I think the first item there is referencing a programmatic EIS, Bison Conservation and Management in Montana. This is a decision notice that was signed in January of 2020 by the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Director Williams. The purpose of the decision was to determine if bison restoration is appropriate in Montana, and if so, under what potential opportunities are feasible and consistent within Montana laws, policies, rules, and regulations. The decision did not identify a specific location or a specific project. If a site-specific project or proposal comes forward in the future, there'll be an additional environmental assessment done at that point, at that time on that project. And at this time, the state of Montana does not have a specific project on the table or proposed. All right, so that gives you somewhat of a background. The decision is separate from management of the Yellowstone National Park bison. It has no influence on this group, the IBMP, the authority or decisions made by this group. So it's with other population and other lands in Montana separate from this effort. So I want to make that clear. And also it does not change any interagency relations or authorities across the board, okay? But it was a long process. It included extensive public input, including a bison decision group, which was a group of representatives of diverse interests who provided guidelines. Fish, Wildlife, and Parks assessed 5 alternatives, including case studies, and concluded that it potentially is appropriate to restore bison in parts of Montana. That appropriateness, though, is based on meeting a number of requirements and guidelines that were identified in the decision. Both requirements of state law and guidelines proposed by the Bison discussion group. So the way the process would work now is if an interested party proposed a restoration project, that would come to FWP, and then we would first determine if it met all the requirements and guidelines that have been established. If so, it would be directed to our Fish and Wildlife Commission. And the Fish and Wildlife Commission, which is a 5-person group appointed by the governor, would decide if it was appropriate to move forward. If so, Fish, Life, and Parks would conduct a site-specific environmental assessment, which included public input and public comment. And then the final decision would rest with the Fish and Wildlife Commission. So it's very similar to our petition processes and how we handle petitions in the state. But that was laid out in this decision also. So in a nutshell, the decision did 3 things. It outlines how bison restoration will follow state law. It drew guidelines from the bison decision or discussion group, sorry. And it clarified the public process for how to consider a proposed bison restoration project. So all these documents, including the EIS, are on our Fish, Life, and Parks webpage. If there's interest or if anyone needs help finding any documents, let me know. I'd be happy to assist in getting those to you. So anyways, unless there's questions, I'll jump off that one because I'd like to spend a little more time on the next item.
And Mark, can I just note that a little report went out to the partners on the carcass handling effort. Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that was the report that Shayna put together.
Yep, that's right. And again, Shayna is available here if you need to.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, if it's okay with her, I'm gonna hand this off to her at the end. Shayna.
Just remember, both of you, the end is not that far away.
Okay, I'm going quick here. Well, first,
I'm here. Just let me know. I'm here.
Okay, first I give a quick shout out to the subcommittee who worked on this carcass issue. Jeff Hoffman, Stacy Corville, Brian Helms, Chris Jeremiah, Neil Thagart, Michael Thome, Sabrina Strauss, and Shayna Dremel. So our work was done online, largely sharing and editing documents, and we did have a conference call to try to discuss these issues. What I'd like to do after this discussion and through Scott is provide the report that the subcommittee completed on, it's a 3-page short report of the discussions and kind of the conclusions we came to. I'm going to go through those quickly, but I'd like to send those out to the larger group following this meeting. And then we can, hopefully at the next meeting, discuss it further and decide as a group what, if any, action should be taken.
Hey, Mark, just quick, because we have public on Facebook Live, will that be posted or is that still an internal document?
Well, I think it can be posted. I mean, I don't think there's anything sensitive in it that shouldn't be. So
thank you.
You bet. Well, first of all, the group determined a problem statement. And that statement really went back to the discussions that we've had at previous meetings, that carcasses on the landscape created problems in that Beatty Gulch area, grizzly bears issues, human safety issues, lead poisoning of scavengers, area aesthetics, and negative impacts for nearby residents and businesses. And so based on that problem statement, the group then broke that down into 4 parts: human safety, bear mortality, lead poisoning, and area aesthetics. And then for each of those 4 problems, listed a number of potential solutions that could be used to try to relieve the problem. I'm not going to go through all those because there's you know, it's everything from removing the carcasses in the gulch to stopping hunting in the gulch, to expanding closures, closing hiking trails, all kinds of different activities, okay? But what was common to all of them was to find a way to remove carcasses from Beatty Gulch. And when we talk about carcasses, it potentially is the skeleton, the meat, the hide, the head. Another definition would also include the gut and stomach contents, but not necessarily have to. So there's different approaches to what portion of the carcass could be removed. And carcass removal could potentially be required of hunters, be contracted out. It could be through government and tribal agents. There's a number of different ways to do that, including the potential to put dumpsters on site, which is what Shayna's gonna talk about here in a second. So moving forward, what the committee came to is what we're recommending at this time is a voluntary and educational approach to implementing solutions. Hunt agencies can inform hunters, encourage removal of carcasses, proper disposal of carcasses, opening and separating the rumen from organs, and dispersing the rumen contents. Bones, head, hides could be removed from the site. These actions would greatly reduce the problems that were identified by the subcommittee, local residents, and hunters. Now, many hunters are doing that now, and that was observed in this last hunt season, where the entire carcasses are being removed and the gut contents are being opened up. And that, you know, that alone, we believe, can relieve many of the problems that exist on site there. So anyways, there are some other solutions laid out there. I don't think there's really time to hit those right now, but I'm gonna pass this off to Shayna here because one of these proposals where we talk about collecting carcasses involves some type of bin or waste disposal system. And that's what Shayna looked into, the logistics and possibilities for that. And she can provide some details on her findings.
And I'm going to mention while Shayna clicks on that she was not feeling good. I talked to her before. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, it's actually up here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think, you know, for the most part, there was initially some question around whether disposal of some of these remains was going to be an issue as far as a disease transmission problem. And I can defer to Marty on this as well, but it sounds like as long as we're only asking folks to dispose of hides and bones, skulls, and not reproductive organs or gut piles, then we should be able to transport and dispose of remains pretty much anywhere, even outside of the DSA. So we, if folks did end up disposing of reproductive organs and gut piles, then we would have to find a dump site or some sort of composting area within the DSA. Further investigation, we determined that the Logan landfill in the Gallatin Valley would probably be the most appropriate place to dispose of carcass remains. As far as we can tell, based on the DSA map, that is within the DSA still. And so even if some of those other organs ended up in the bin, I don't think it would be an issue. However, I will defer to Marty on that. And then real quickly, we did a little bit of research as far as, you know, the cost of purchasing a trailer or a dump trailer or a carcass bin. And what we found was that Steve Prim, who helped me out with this, determined that based on the amount of remains that we'd probably get in a season, that we could go for a medium-sized dump trailer. Using a dump trailer would allow any sort of large truck to be able to haul it out of there. So that would be the preferred, I guess, receptacle. something like that, a new dump trailer would run anywhere between $7,000 and $9,000. And then to put a bear resistant top on it would cost an additional $2,000. However, we could try and find a used dump trailer to purchase as well. The cost to dispose of remains at the Logan landfill, and we did actually talk to those guys over there and they were okay with this, would be about $27 per ton. And so we felt like this was a pretty reasonable price. And so after purchasing a dumpster and getting it out on the landscape out there, the primary issue is going to be finding somebody who'd be willing to dump it once or twice a season, and then paying for that, finding funding to pay for that ongoing cost. And then just keep in mind too that we had pledged that we could set aside $5,000, the Greater Yellowstone Coalition, to help purchase this dumpster. However, if we were to go with a new one, we are going to fall up a little bit short. And so just wanted to put it out there that while we would certainly try and find a used dumpster first and foremost, if that's not possible, then we would need some help with bringing up the additional costs. And so just wanted to throw it out there. I'm not sure if some of the other agencies would have funding or an ability to try and contribute towards this. We might be able to ask some other NGOs to pitch in as well. So I have a lot more information, but that's just kind of the basics there. Let me know if you guys have questions.
Folks with questions for either Shana or for Mark?
So just to wrap it up then, thanks, Shana.
Yeah.
We'll send out this report to the group. These ideas have been met with some support and some reservation. And so please take a look at it and we can discuss this further. If it's acceptable to the group or something different is acceptable to the group, great, and we can move forward with that. And so I expect further discussion at upcoming meetings. But thanks everybody on the subcommittee for your time.
I will just note that in a few minutes, we're going to talk about winter ops planning, and I've got a bunch of things which now adds carcass handling as potential for folks to be thinking about. The next up is NPS. I guess, Tim, description of the new Bison EIS.
Okay, I think I'm on, Scott. So Tim Reed here.
You're good.
The next two topics, the NEPA topic and then the joint update with the NPS Forest Service on ongoing lawsuits will probably be a brief given the nexus to ongoing litigation. So that qualifier, Ray McAdden, the branch chief of compliance in Yellowstone, is steering NEPA for the park. He reports to Chief Finley, and Wes-ER will speak to the first topic, and then PJ White will give an update as appropriate on the lawsuit from the NPS perspective. So Ray McAdden.
Thanks, Tim, and good morning, everyone. We reached out back in the spring to IBMP Partners to discuss how Yellowstone National Park could update our planning and compliance for bison management. And during those calls, we discussed documents centered on Yellowstone, the park, that would take into consideration actions likely to occur on adjacent lands as a result of our management decisions. One reason for doing a new bison plan focused on Yellowstone is that since the IBMP was signed in 2000, there's been numerous adaptive management adjustments as well as new information and changed conditions. And we, the park, have never really completed a new umbrella management framework and then environmental analysis to go with that. So a new plan gives us a chance to evaluate all the changes that have been made in the last 20 years and all the things we've learned in the last 20 years, evaluate that all in one place. So I think important too is that we want a document that will complement the other up-to-date or modern plans prepared by the other two major land managers here in the GYE, and that's the Forest Service and the state of Montana. So the Forest Service has just released their final EIS for the Custer Gallatin Forest Plan revision. And state of Montana, going back to 2015, has the year-round habitat for Yellowstone bison. That was an environmental assessment, I think, under the Montana's Environmental Policy Act. So we're moving forward today on a Yellowstone National Park Bison Management Plan and Environmental Impact Statement. And in terms of what you'll see from us next, we have letters in the mail right now to each of the IBMP partners that it's going to invite you to essentially be a cooperating agency in the Yellowstone National Park Bison Management Plan and EIS. So we ask that you respond. I think we said 30 days in our letter, respond to our cooperating agency invites with a yes or no, and then also included with that letter is a memorandum of understanding that lays out how we'll work together, where we'll engage cooperating agencies in the EIS process. So I'll stop there. I think maybe we've got time for a few questions.
Anybody have questions for Ray?
Scott?
Yes, please.
Yes, Quincy here. Yeah, when was that letter sent out and the MOU?
Yesterday. It was mailed yesterday. So I think you'll see one. We did send one to NESPERS, so you'll see that probably next week sometime, maybe end of this week. So specifically, I can run through who got a letter. So state of Montana, we sent one to the governor's office, CC'd Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks and Department of Livestock. We sent a letter, an MOU to the Forest Service, Custer Gallatin, APHIS by way of Ryan Clark, NESPERS, ITBC, Salish Kootenai.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Tom. Do you have a time frame? Do you have a projected timeline for this?
Yeah, we intend to really do a notice of intent in the Federal Register, which is the typical, or that's the traditional start of the EIS process. We're targeting this winter. So we've still got some time to work through scope, to have more in-depth conversations with cooperating agencies, to initiate tribal consultations. So we're giving ourselves some space to continue to refine scope and goals of the plan with the aim of a notice of intent this winter.
Was there an intent to exclude the treaty tribes on those letters of the cooperating agency status?
No, I don't think, exclusion is a goal here for the park. We, in terms of cooperating agencies, the benchmark there is jurisdiction by law or special expertise. And so we are interpreting that in this context as IBMP partners. In terms of other tribes who have treaty rights who are hunting on the boundary, we will engage through the tribal consultation process. So there'll be multiple points, I think, for interested groups, tribes, other agencies, the public at large to engage in the EIS process. It's a fairly robust, multi-step process that there's at least 3 or 4 points where we have a milestone and substantive content where I envision us sharing that and asking for feedback on it.
This is Jeremy. Scott?
Yep, go ahead, Jeremy, and then we're going to work towards making this one of the last ones, hopefully. Thank you. Go.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, real quick. There's been a long understanding with the federal government about our status as not being stakeholders. So I hope that we're not being placed in that realm. We do have a trust responsibility on both sides. So that's where we're feeling an understanding that we have that connection. So this is the first time that I've noted that been kind of put in a different scenario as partners. You know, we sit at the table trying to make sure we're participating as well as we can, and I think that with that trust responsibility and law, what would you say was the criteria? Jurisdiction.
By law or
We
special
do have
expertise.
jurisdiction there. Yeah. So I guess my feeling, and our associates would likely agree, tribal associates, that we would be a part of that. So moving forward, I understand consultation very well, but just don't want to make it to some sort of criteria that is as Carl was saying, even hints at the exclusion, because we do want to make sure we're participating not only effectively but efficiently. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks.
I've heard one other last comment on this one, and we'll move on to PJ.
Yeah, I just wanted to, this is Quincy. Just
Thanks,
wanted to, tribal consultation is interpreted by the Nez Perce tribe as before at least 6 of the 9 NIPTIC members inside Richard Hapland Chambers is how Nez Perce interprets tribal consultation, is before at least 6 of the 9 board members. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the update on the 2 lawsuits.
Hey, hello everyone, this is PJ. If you remember back in 2018, the Cottonwood Environmental Law Center sued several of the IBMP partners to supplement the NEPA analysis for the IBMP. And they also sought to enjoin us from enforcing the tolerance zone boundary for quarantine, hazing, or harassing bison until that supplemental NEPA was completed. There's been some recent activity on this case. On June 30th, the District Court of Montana dismissed Governor Bullock, the state of Montana, from the complaint. I believe that was because NEPA is a federal regulation, not state. And also the Superintendent Shalley signed a declaration indicating that the Park Service would initiate additional NEPA on bison management in the park. More recently, on July 6th, the district court delayed a hearing on the plaintiff's motion for a preliminary injunction, and then a few days later, the Department of Justice filed a motion for voluntary remand without vacatur. I'm sure you all know what that means. Or stay of the proceeding until additional NEPA is completed. So basically, Department of Justice for the park and forest and is requesting that we implement the IBMP as adjusted until NEPA is completed. My understanding is the plaintiffs didn't agree to that, so I'm not sure what hearings will be scheduled in the near future. Another case is the Neighbors Against Bison Slaughter and Bonnie Lynn versus the National Park Service and the Forest Service. They sued for supposed failure to impose reasonable restrictions on the migration and hunting of bison in Beatty Gulch, thereby risking the safety of businesses, residents, and visitors. The state of Montana and the American Indian tribes with treaty hunting rights were not included as defendants in this case. The plaintiffs did ask for a temporary restraining order and injunction to stop the hunt and permanently enjoin the federal agencies from authorizing bison hunting on federal land in Beatty Gulch. and within 1 mile of private residences there. On December 2nd of 2019, the District Court of Montana denied the motion for a preliminary injunction. And then more recently, on June 30th, the Department of Justice filed a motion for voluntary remand or stay of the proceedings while additional NEPA analysis is completed. And again, my understanding is the plaintiff didn't agree to this motion, but is trying to reach a negotiated resolution of the claims. So that's the update I have. I'll pass it to the Forest Service.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, sorry, Scott.
No, go ahead. Sorry, apologize.
Yeah, I don't, that was a good overview, and I don't really have anything additional to add.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Chance for maybe one question. Many of the lawyerly types that would like to, well, actually anyone.
This is John H., CSKT. I'll just note that in the neighbor's case, the 4 MOA tribes have participated in that litigation, at least at the TRO and preliminary injunction phase, as an amicus. And we still have an amicus status in that, which means we're not a party, but we've filed some briefs describing the interests of those 4 tribes. So Umatilla, Nez Perce, Yakima, along with CSKT. So thanks for the update.
Okay. All right, if we can, we'll move on to winter ops planning. Let's see, Martin, if there is the one slides that have my name on them, they have some dates in there, and maybe we could take a look at that. Every year, the partners spend the summer and then a bit into the fall looking at the swapping of the winter ops plan. Sorry, not swapping, improving, changing if needed at all. Go down just a couple and we'll see. I think it's like the 4th or 5th slide. I think I put a couple maps in there in case we needed. Yeah, keep going. I think it's the 5th slide. There we go. So the timeline to complete. So I'll go over the timeline first before we talk about what might go in there. Today is discuss possible changes to winter ops plan for the coming year and identify who will write drafts for each of those changes. At some point, the Park Service generally provides the bison count and their harvest recommendations based on that and IBMP goals. Chris pointed out that may or may not be possible to do, and he may need to come back in and continue anything on that. I'm suggesting by October 15th, whatever changes are suggested be sent forward to me. I know in the past, you know, Becky, Stephanie, who else? Neil, maybe. Different people have helped me over the years from the lead partner agency to incorporate those. At the December meeting, I will have sent those back out, whatever changes were made, and then and they need to be signed by the 31st. Could you go one more before we open this up, Martin? Thanks. So that's sort of a timeline. And this is important, and Tom McDonald, I believe, and I, gosh, a long time ago, 2 months ago, said, if this group can't meet, you know, what do we do? And we both recognize that the partner protocols say, if there's no agreement to a new winter ops plan, then the partners agree to operate under the existing plan. That, I think, actually was sort of decreed thinking about the partners not agreeing on some point in the winter ops plan, not having difficulty getting together because of disease. So I just want to mention that. And then one more, and then I think we're done. Key topics. So we've just got, you know, sort of 10, 15 minutes. In the past, key topics have been the bison removal target, which I don't think is decided today, usually from the Park Service, quarantine, assurance, bison transfer, usually APHIS and ITBC. Question of other major topics are minor edits. And I heard today in the winter ops review, there needs to be improvement in communications, improvement in reporting. There is, as has been most years, tension between the hunt, the trap, and population goals. Then the question that was just up above, what do the partners do if there is no aerial population count this year? And finally, the carcass handling. So with that, the question, I had hoped that we could just go through everybody, but I think it'd be more appropriate just to say, do folks have ideas on other things that may need to change in the winter operations plan? And if not, do I have the right ones, and can we assign someone to write those? For example, improved communications. Steph, it seems like we always get to volunteer you. Could we put Steph's name by that, et cetera, et cetera? And I'll shut up now and see if folks have something to say. It might be appropriate to start with Tom and the lead partner team with respect to rewriting the winter ops plan with the summary that I just provided.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I guess, you know, as managing a population of wildlife, you like to have an idea what your population, your target animals are. So I guess, if Chris, we can, if there's difficulty in doing the aerial counts, I guess maybe relying on, you know, producing what the scientific and based on years in the past, what our estimate of the population is going into the planning for the winter ops. I guess we need to come to some idea what that is. If we can't do flights, then how are we going to base that range for removal through hunt and or administrative removal if needed, or quarantine removal? So I guess that particular topic is major in my point of looking at the winter ops plan for right now.
Chris, do you want to address that?
Sure. You know, I guess the first thing is a count is just a count, and the count is never what we think the bison population is. Everybody knows this who, you know, it's a wildlife population. So there is a lot of variation around that count number. And we already know roughly where we think the population will be without counting based on all of the data that we've collected thus far. So we have integrated population models to predict how many bison are in the park at any moment in time. You know, that aside, there's a lot of evidence that points to this population is stabilized where we've been. We've averaged 4,900 animals for more than the last 5 years. And we've generally agreed to a stable to slightly decreasing population. We're right in that range again. So I would think that that's the starting point. And as we hopefully will be able to complete some flights, we'll just confirm what I just said. Does that answer your question?
Sure. Yeah. It just, you raised the issue of not doing any counts. Everybody's clear on how we can proceed. So thank you, Chris.
You know, a removal of 400 to 600 animals stabilizes a population around 4,500 animals. A removal of 600 to 900 stabilizes a population closer to 5,000. So, you know, again, we need to do our deliberations. We need to get all of the updated harvest information. But, you know, if you look back at all of the operations plans for nearly a decade now, since 2012, when we started providing a status report in the summer or fall meeting and agreeing to some type of management strategy, almost every year, the recommendation is somewhere in the 600-ish range or slightly higher. So I wouldn't expect any surprises this year.
Chris, for the notes and also for action items, what would be a date that the park would know yes or no on population flights And on the harvest recommendations, last year, I believe PJ sent it out September 20th or something like that.
Sure. So probably the August 31st on whether we will complete flights, probably September 31st on completing the population monitoring and assessment.
Okay.
You know, either way.
Great, thank you very much. Tom, other questions?
No, I think, well, I guess one comment, I think, I really do want to thank Steph and John and for doing the weekly calls for the hunt, and communication is really critical. So if Umatilla and Nez Perce are considering that communications need to be improved, you know, maybe that's really not a much of a change to the op plan, but more of a, you know, I think we talked about that before, a separate document that really lays out that communication for the hunt agencies in that late season that we're starting to see more of a trend where the migration is occurring in March and even into April. So maybe that's another way to tackle that particular issue. Is maybe not exactly in the winter ops plan, but in another corresponding document or a tiered document.
For Quincy, Jeremy, and I guess Bing, would it be acceptable if the notes reflect the concept of improved communications in the winter op plan? I'm just throwing this out. Will be a combination of Neil, Carl, and Steph getting together and deciding what you said, either on a new document or an improvement in the winter ops plan, or leave it alone, but that somebody's looking at it. I'm trying to get a person on each one of these things. Is that acceptable? I guess Quincy and Jeremy / Carl.
This is Jeremy.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, so yeah, thanks Scott. We're gonna maybe on a side note, as everybody knows, we do have a MOA with the tribes signed on. It has been difficult for us, obviously. Normally we meet prior to the meeting when we do travel. We weren't able to schedule anything at this time, but I think we have had some side conversations about getting together and collaborating on that agreement and improve communications there, but also for the ops plan. So yeah, from our perspective, we plan on getting together with, at the very least, those MOA tribes. We have been actively trying to get the other hunting tribes a part of that, but we'll still continue those reach outs. But otherwise, yes, we'll be looking forward to increased communications on a number of levels.
Great, thanks. And can I put Carl's name on that? Is that acceptable, Carl? Or maybe he's gone.
Yes, that's fine, Scott.
Okay, and Quincy / Neil, separate the MOA, but just thinking of the winter ops plan. Is that acceptable to anything in improved communications associated with the winter ops plan, the tribe will participate?
Yeah, I think it's important that, you know, improved communication be a part of this winter ops plan. You know, we're more than happy to, myself, Neil, and Mike Lopez will work with the other tribal entities to, you know, draft something up.
Okay.
But I mean, improvement or better communication on any aspect, whether it's this or any other tribal issue, is very, very key, especially when they're involving other federal entities. Thank you.
Thanks, Quincy. The other one was improved reporting, which started with Mark and Steph, with the notes coming out and looking at improving the winter ops plan. Should we have Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and CSKT on? Again, this is improved reporting, which is communications, but a separate item. Steph or Mark?
So your question, Scott, is we continue as we've been doing it?
Well, I wrote down 5 items that people called out as problems when 2019, 2020. One of them was reporting, meaning getting all the data as places that winter ops needs to be looked at to see if it can be improved. There may be, you may say it's already there, it's just we got to get people to do it, but it seems like the partners are wanting to do that, so somebody needs to look into it, and my job is always to find a name to put to something. My apologies.
Yeah, I think, and Stephanie, please add into this. I think we have a process procedure to do the reporting, and I think those hunt meetings are an excellent way to do it weekly. I guess my comments earlier were just largely encouragement to the hunt agencies to be diligent in their reporting, because it does really facilitate not only the count, but then the information available to make management decisions down the road and at that time with the trapping. So there's quite a bit of value in keeping those counts accurate and updated. But I guess I don't have necessarily an idea of how to change that if everyone would just continue to participate. Stephanie, any ideas?
Well, I think the problem that we were having with some tribal entities is having a specific, like Scott's talking about, a specific name for that person to report. So we're reaching out to several individuals and sometimes not just crickets. So having one person at least to report back, I think that was our issue with some of the newer hunt tribes.
And that's an excellent idea, Stephanie. If there is a contact person from each hunt agency, facilitate, if we're missing a report, that would facilitate getting in contact with the correct person.
Exactly. And it might be on their end too, as far as being newer hunter tribes and not, or hunting tribes and not reporting back. So I'm not sure what the issue is, but being able to talk to someone within their agencies to try to help, at least report a number weekly or talk to their hunters about reporting their numbers, something.
Steph, can I put down as a potential change to the 2020-2021 Winter Ops Plan is that you would develop a matrix of people, reporting people. So effectively, it's exact same operation, just identifying those people. So that could be an extension. And
Yes, that would be very helpful.
And just your name on it. Is that all right?
Scott?
Yeah, please. Sorry.
I was just going to recommend you add the other part about that as well as just having a timeline on that. Recommended it, whether it's weekly or whatever it is, that could be discussed as well.
Sure, date is on there. Got it. Thanks, Jeremy.
Scott, this is John H. And a lot of this is usually done at the hunt managers meeting, which we didn't have. So I don't want to drag all the other IBMP partners in, but I'll just note that not everybody could make the call every week. So sometimes we'd have, an entity that wouldn't be on a call for a couple of weeks. So it was hard. We're always playing catch up. If I might suggest if a hunt agency can't make the call, to at least please submit, have someone dedicated each week to at least please submit by that call date the updated information. So if you can't have anybody on a call, that's understandable. But when we have people that are absent for a week or two, we're just playing catch up then at that point, and we get pretty far behind. So I would just think that's something that would be helpful to at least have a dedicated person that could at least submit the information even if you can't be on the call.
Super. I've got that down. The other two that had to do with the population and the potential of no data, and Chris already answered that. And then the last one that I have down, if someone else has others, please yell in a second, is the potential of including some kind of carcass handling plan in the Winter Ops Plan. I believe Mark wasn't pushing that direction, but I just have it down as something that was discussed. Is there a potential person to write something into the plan, or is the group not ready for that, Mark?
Well, I'd certainly be willing to write something into the plan, although I don't think we're ready for that yet. I think, I'd like to get this report out to the group and get feedback. You know, we're talking about a recommendation that's voluntary, but you know, I think it really needs to be determined if, as a whole, this group really wants to go down that road or not, and if so, then how to do it. And so, I guess I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse here. I think we need to have some agreement within the group that this is something that we want to do. And then if so, then I'd be certainly happy to help formulate something for the plan.
So the notes, Mark, will just say sort of an in process. The first item is to get the report out for partner feedback. And given that the plan is written by December 31st, there is still time for the partner to say, doggone it, let's do that. And they can say that on December 3rd and write it in. So is that?
And I'm willing to work on that if that's the direction the group wants to go.
Mark equals yes. Okay, that's the items I had for winter ops. The annual report here thing, I only need a minute, so we still have a couple minutes. Is there anything else in the winter ops plan that this is open to anybody that people are thinking needs to be rewritten? Because it'd be nice to leave today with who's going to look at that, which I've got now on all these items. Anything else? I'll just pause.
Scott, I got one.
Please, Jeremy.
Thank you, Scott. The trap ops that we've worked on, it was noted earlier, but you know, not to belabor getting into all the detail, but another communications issue, understanding that some of it was quote unquote a bit gray. There was some gray area in the asks of the parties, whether it be from the tribes or from the trap operations itself. So there needs to be some clarity on a number of those points and how that's related to the hunt operations or the harvest by the tribes, and how the hazing operations or the general operations in tandem or otherwise.
In a previous year, I believe there was like a I don't know, like a little team, little subcommittee that worked on that. Is that, do we need someone recognizing it as one thing, someone writing something or reviewing it is another? Is there a suggestion of who could write the potential change to the winter ops plan, Jeremy?
Yeah, kind of putting us on our heels, as it was noted earlier, because we normally address this in the hunt meeting. So from my perspective, I'd like to talk with our team and the other tribes, and then eventually work with the previous team members, or at least the equivalent representatives that were on that team, if they've changed at all.
So Jeremy, can the notes just reflect that you're going to consider the hunt trap communications and pull together the appropriate people?
That sounds good.
Thank you. Anybody else, other things?
Yeah, Scott?
Please, Quincy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think maybe one of the things too that maybe can some changes, or a little bit of adjustment, is how trapping is gonna happen. They can change some things up. Less trapping, propose less trapping for more optimal harvest, successful harvest for treaty tribes and state hunters. Because once things start coming across, and what little come over, and you have a bunch of state hunters, tribal hunters, in one area, and everybody wants to go home with something, and you're determining what's going across, you're just a part of that problem. You're just as much a part of that problem, of that equation. So I think some other changes that need to be proposed from the Park Service is how are they going to adjust it, and not just blame everything on reporting. Reporting can be a quick fix. Getting on our staff and make sure things are reported. But I would like to see some adjustments of timing of trapping, and being more sensitive, to the hunt.
Can I ask Tim and company, is the Park Service I've forgotten, I apologize. The harvest recommendations, does that include a description of percentage or how the trap is run, or does that need to be rewritten in the ops plan?
Actually would insist on being involved in the discussions that Jeremy and Quincy have teed up. So we'll look forward to that. I think that we have some data and some strong opinions on things that could be done with the way the hunt is conducted to facilitate one of the goals, annual goals of allowing habitat learning and distribution in conservation areas. But obviously it's an offline conversation, but we look forward to being involved.
Okay. So right now I've got the Nez Perce, this group led by CT, the Umatilla Nez Perce Park Service. Mark, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks would be on that list, I assume, or not?
I think we should be added to that list if it's going to affect the opportunity for state hunters.
Anybody else?
Our state hunt ends pretty early, but
I know that Jeremy has, through the MOU, also has folks there that he would be talking to, but explicitly in the notes, does anybody else want to be listed on a group talking about trap hunt coordination? Okay.
Yes, this is Laurel from Yakima Nation. I think Yakima should be involved in that as well. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Okay, the notes will reflect that, and Jeremy, obviously you will call in the people that you feel like need to be there. But I just want to have something down. Anything else? That gets through the list plus another one, a couple more.
Yeah, Scott.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I didn't want to make a full list or anything out of it, but pretty much the hunting parties and the agencies that spoke up, I believe, were a part of that discussion prior. One other specific concern that we've had, and we actually discussed at our Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting yesterday, was the markers. So this might just go down to maybe some consistency in the understanding of the safety zones and markers that specifically in Beatty Gulch, there's 150 yard markers, and that language isn't consistent with other state regulations in there. So that whether you're addressing it by yardage or the actual markers in the ground, to be consistent with the rest of the regulations, it would be a distance. So
and that's another. That would be Forest Service, right? That would need to look at that?
Yeah, Forest Service. So that would probably be an addition to that previous discussion.
Okay, I've got that written down, and Kathy and Mike and Scott, I've got your guys' name on that as need to look at that in the winter ops plan. Okay. Martin, will you pop up that same slideshow that you just had up? It just has one other date. The annual report is really just a mention, but as long as I made a slide, it does have a date on it, which I believe it's the next slide. It just says, I believe the 15th of October, if I recall what I wrote, maybe one more. The partners have been tremendous at providing the materials for the annual report. Maybe 5 years ago, PJ led a really great effort to change it from sort of wrote a whole bunch of disconnected kind of things to a much more concise report. I will be sending something out unless CSKT is my lead right now, and then next the Nez Perce tribe tells me not to. I'll be sending out a request for the annual report materials on December 2nd. Whether this group meets this way or in person, you will have the first draft, of course, assuming you get me the information. I put it together, but you have to provide the information. And generally, in the middle of December, we get that annual report back. It's published to the IBMP. Recall the reason for this is the GAO in 2008 said this group lacks transparency, and one of the recommendations was to put out an annual report, and the group has done so for 11 years. So that's why that is. I don't think there's any questions on that. Right now it's Tom and company. Any thoughts on that? We didn't really even talk about this. Oops.
I think you explained it really well, Scott. I know we have just August with you, and then in September it goes to the Nez Perce tribe.
Right. And I'm wondering if we can do this a perfect transition. We have 16 minutes left, and thank you everyone for being so concise. This is tremendous. The big question for the remaining time, and maybe it's 5 minutes or maybe it's 16 minutes, is the December 2nd meeting, and this can swap over to Quincy and company, is planned right now for Lapway. There's already been chatter on various emails that said, gosh, you know, we haven't, that we, meaning the partners, have not been in the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem now because of the cancellation, et cetera, will not have been there since last December 2nd. So if they went to Lapway, it would be a year and a half without a meeting inside the GYE. So the question has come up a couple times. Should the meeting be moved back? This is assuming it can even be held in person, be moved back to Bozeman. And Quincy or someone, I can't remember who just said, potential idea of moving the whole calendar back. Like next year, the tribal entities, again, our leads, and Park Service goes the year after that. So this is just open for discussion, but probably should start with Quincy with respect to ideas of potentially, you can take this one off, Martin, and go back to the group. Potentially, what should happen with the next IBMP meeting, fully realizing that no one knows if it's going to be open to meeting in person. So this is an open discussion moment. Quincy, do you want to start though?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I think everybody's going to want to be there because we moved it to Maui, Hawaii. So.
Okay, well that's a sale. I think we're done.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'd really like to, continue to advocate for the IBMP meeting to be held within the exterior boundaries of the Nez Perce Indian Reservation. It's also close for the Yakima Confederated Tribes of the Yakima Nation to be here. Confederated Tribes of Umatilla. It's a little closer for them. I understand, and also the importance of having it in the greater Yellowstone area. If we're able to continue plan on an in-person meeting, I'd advocate for it to be here. If other partners feel like we can still meet but would like it to be in Bozeman, I would be open to that, and I'd have to communicate that with my fellow constituents and also the Nez Perce Fish and Wildlife Commission, so we can make applicable travel arrangements. And I still would like to, out of all fairness, I would like to see if the partners would support the tribes hosting next year. I don't know how the other partners feel about that. I know we'll just be coming out of, hopefully, there'll be a vaccine within the next 6 months, and, we'll get adapted to that, and we'll, see the numbers of this COVID-19 go down, and also still practicing social distancing. There's a lot more personal protective equipment that's going to be available and also currently available to make these meetings happen.
Super. Other thoughts? Thoughts from partners on what Quincy just said? Mike, Marty, Mark, from the state perspective?
This is Mike. I just would weigh in. I don't have any problems with what was just said. I think it's kind of hard right now to give, any sort of assurance of what we'll be able to do in December. As you look at it right now, out-of-state travel would be restricted for all state employees by governor order, but we don't know that we would still be in that position come December. And so, you know, I guess I don't have strong opinions about it either way. It's just, I know it's going to be hard for planning purposes trying to adjust to whatever that environment is. And I don't think any of us know what that's going to look like at the present time.
And Mike, also, and other partners, can you react to Quincy's statement that if it has to be in Bozeman or has to be Zoom, shifting so that the tribal entities, at least ITBC and the Nez Perce tribe, can host next year instead? Any thoughts on that when folks answer? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, from my perspective, I have no problem with pushing that back and recognizing, you know, what's happened in the last year's kind of put us off cycle, and making sure everybody has a full opportunity to be represented in the lead partner role. So that's not an issue for me.
Mark?
And I just echo everything Mike has said, both from the state travel perspective and support for tribes holding meetings.
Ryan?
Yeah, I personally, I think the way things are going that we won't be able to travel in December. But I think Quincy's idea about giving the tribes 2021 to perform their leadership role is a good idea, and I would support that. And if others supported that, I would say, if that's going to be the case, that if we by chance happen to have a in-face meeting in December, then that should be in Bozeman, and then we will get back to the tribal locations in 2021.
Arnell?
I would agree that pushing it back for the tribes to have that next year in 2021 would be good.
Super. Bing, thoughts?
Well, you know, with shelter in place and everything here, I don't know if we'll be able to travel or not by December, but just, yeah, that's what I believe what Tom and them would probably go along with me saying that, you know, that sounds okay with us.
Super. Who have I missed? Kathy?
Hi. Yeah, I agree with all that's been said. And if we do end up with a face-to-face meeting in December, Bozeman agree that that should be the location.
Marty, did Mike speak for you, or do you have any thoughts? Okay. Thumbs up. I'm sorry, I'm looking on my screen and I don't, did I miss anybody? Any of the partners for now?
Oh, hey, Scott, Tim Reed.
I'm sorry, Tim.
We would support Bozeman in December and then resetting to the tribes in 2021.
And let's be clear, the Park Service, per the protocols, is intended to be the host next year. So you're good with that, and then just move it out a year, you know, assuming that IBMP is still existing and all that.
Yeah, we could support that tentative plan.
Okay, so here, somebody yell if I missed anybody. Okay, so the proposal then is, or I think it's a decision. We don't know if there's going to be an in-person meeting in December. If there is, it will be rescheduled to Bozeman, and 2021 will become what 2020 was supposed to be. So the 3 tribal entities hosting. I think ITBC and the Nez Perce tribe, that makes sense. The CSKT, and we'll work towards giving them the last word anyway. It's a little different because you did just kind of host a meeting here. And so that's one. And number 2 is, if it isn't in person, is the Nez Perce tribe still going to be the host in December, even if it's online? And we can certainly do that, Quincy. I'm happy to if you're willing, but you would have double duty as with the CSKT. Bing, Tom, John, Steph?
Scott, this is Quincy.
Yep.
Yeah, we can. I think the decision has been made that we will, if we have an in-person meeting, I think we can adjust to the Bozeman. And I thank you for to the other entities that supporting. Hopefully in 2021, we can all meet and see each other, and I think the meetings are a little bit more productive. And because I don't like relying on this electronic stuff, so it's but we have to adapt to it, and we're still getting some business done, but I appreciate the support. And if we can have an in-person meeting, let's plan on for Bozeman. Thank you.
Yeah, and I believe we got the okay from Arnell already. And being yes, but also hosting next year. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Was that a yes from Bing?
Somebody said yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that the decision then is made. I'll just restate it again. We don't know if there's a potential for meeting in December. It will not be in Lapway. If there is an in-person meeting, it will be in Bozeman, to be determined. If it is a Zoom call, I think then I'll work with the Nez Perce tribe in the same way. And then in 2021, we will revert to what 2020 was going to be, which is the tribal entities, ITBC in whatever date is decided, in likely April, CSKT in likely summer, and Nez Perce tribe in likely fall, December. And again, those could be changed. That's not important, but it's still those three entities running the show next year. Speak and yell if that's not correct, and otherwise that'll be the decision. We are at 11:54 and have got through the agenda. We have a space for Bing to provide a send off. But before we do that, is there any other burning comment, question? You know, we still have, what do we have? We still have 39 people on board. So this is an opportunity if there's any last thing to do to bring forth. I'll just pause a second.
Scott, this is John H. I just want to thank Martin again because I think this meeting went really well, and he deserves a lot of credit. We couldn't have done it without him, and you as well, you know, for helping us get this set up. It's been really helpful to work with you, and so a lot of credit for you and Martin for a good meeting. So really appreciate it, and all the work that the crew put together. So thanks, and thanks for all the CSKT council members that were on there. I saw a number of them on there. Some stayed for the whole meeting, and that's important too. So I thank that, and of course the rest of the Bison staff, Tom and Dan and Steph, as always. Thanks.
I add my thanks to Martin. Steph or Tom, as organizing committee, before we hand it over to Bing to say goodbye, any thoughts from you?
Well, I certainly am disappointed that we're not all here in Polson and enjoying Flathead Lake right at this moment in the after hours of our meeting. But I look forward to seeing so many of you in the future. Whether or not we can pull off a meeting in December, face-to-face meeting, I am pretty skeptical on that, but probably looking forward to another Zoom meeting. But certainly, I think it's better when we meet face-to-face and talk with a lot of these things. And we are a little bit behind the game with not having the hunt parties meet in May. That is a difficult thing. So we're set back. There's no doubt. But I know everybody's really talented, and they voice themselves really well. So I look forward to a successful management year in the next year coming. So thanks, Scott.
You bet. We'll give Steph a chance and then let Bing wrap up.
My background is not as amazing as Tom's, just sitting in the forest. But yes, I just say thank you to everyone. And if we do this again next year, I look forward to our weekly winter ops calls, and hopefully we work on all of our communication and move forward in a positive way. So thank you everyone for attending the meeting.
Okay, last note, it goes to lead partner Bing. Please, any thoughts you have, and when he's done, we'll close.
Yeah, well, it's been a real good meeting. Lots of information that was discussed here, and you know, communications sound like is going to be, and reporting is going to be issues, but partners, all partners seem like they have all their ducks in a row as usual. From 4 years ago, 5 years ago, since I was on here last, a lot of good information is still being passed through, and being dealt with by the people. But it was a pleasure to sit in on this again. And like I say, after being gone for the past 4 years and being back on the IBMP committee, it's good to be back. And I'm looking forward again to this meeting again in hopefully in December. But like Tom said, was pretty skeptical on our part up here to be going traveling, but we'll see what's going to happen. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Martin for sitting in, my fellow councilman here, for helping out here. And it's been a great meeting. I want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Have a great, safe day. I made a mistake right at the end. See y'all. Thanks, Martin.
You're welcome. Glad to do it.
Yeah, I'll cancel that room.
Everybody be safe.
Thanks.
Good to hear you all.
You too.
How do I just?
Everybody have a good one. Stay safe.
Take care.
Be safe, everybody.